What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 426. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron.
And you're supposed to be working, not prancing around your cell like a flamingo with a boner.
Classic line.
That classic line.
Classic line. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you.
See you.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Who sings that? We've been that little hook there. Who sings that song? I don't know. It's like one of those.
Is that Train? No, that's Stained.
Stained. Oh, it's train. Yeah, I see where you're going there.
It's Trained.
It's a train. I got you. Yeah, man. It's been it'll be a couple weird weeks here. I was out last week and I'm traveling next week, so we're kind of having alternate weeks here in release. So the next episode we'll do our next watch them all. But today we're going to be going over John's pick for required viewing, which is Fierce Creatures. And I guess beyond that, we'll talk about Ronald's got some physical media I know he wants to talk about. And then maybe we'll just kind of go around and see what else each of us have seen. Does that sound like an episode?
It sounds like an episode.
That's what it is. So John, let's go right into required viewing. Talk to us about your pick, why, who, what, when, how.
The film that I picked was in the spirit of our ongoing Halloween Watch-em-all, where we're about to be in our next episode in a couple of weeks. It's going to be the last one, and we're going to be looking at the sort of new Jamie Lee Curtis trilogy that happened with David Gordon Green. And I was thinking about Jamie Lee Curtis being involved in like 2 attempts to kind of reboot the Halloween franchise or bring it back. And then it dawned on me, well, there's another movie that she was in that was an attempt to kind of recapture something. And I thought it might be interesting to check it out. So yeah, Fierce Creatures was the sort of de facto spiritual sequel, whatever you want to call it, to a much better film, A Fish Called Wanda. It took them about 9 years to get this movie together. It's in no way a sequel, but each of the leads in it, and that is John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and Michael Palin, they all sort of play spins on what they did in Fish Called Wanda that are, I would say Michael Palin and Jamie Lee Curtis have like the biggest downgrade in terms of like the comedy value of their characters. Kevin Kline gets a lot to do, and it's like it doesn't always work, but there is something fun about seeing Kevin Kline turn up the smarm and his ability to be sort of like a yuppie asshole. There's something kind of funny about how he throws himself into it. His character is more interesting and has more heart in A Fish Called Wanda too, but it's still, in this he gets to play 2 characters, and one of them is a very, very thinly disguised riff on Rupert Murdoch, which did feel a little bit like they were making a commentary on the kind of great man fallacy that sort of surrounds one of our presidential candidates right now. So I felt like this movie did feel like it had a couple instances of like, oh, that feels almost timely. But mostly it's going for like British sex farce with lots of, sort of dated jokes in that realm. But it's like it's trying to be a certain kind of bedroom farce, British comedy that even when it wasn't working for me, it's like it was quaint to me, and it actually had a certain kind of charm to the sort of, it was like trying to be a certain kind of farce that I was like, well, I'm charmed by this. You just don't see this type of movie. But it's unquestionably a downgrade from A Fish Called Wanda. And, it's a bumpy ride like a lot of kind of misfiring comedies like that go. But I feel like there's enough that I chuckled at that I didn't get bored watching it. But I would be interested to know what you guys thought of it. Ronald, you said you had a statement to make about Fierce Creatures.
That's a statement.
I think I missed the Jamie Lee Curtis run. Like, I think I missed like her being the one.
Yeah.
I think I missed it. Like,
you missed it, not you missed it, not that you missed.
No, I missed it. Like I
missed you like
it
a
missed
bullet.
me culturally. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Everybody used to talk about her with this kind of reverence. I always thought she was a great actress. That's not what I'm talking about.
No, I know what you're saying.
Oh my God, when Jamie Lee Curtis used to come on the screen, and the last couple of things that I've seen her in, I'm like, I get it. Like she has a presence. She's like a real presence. Like she kind of, even in this crazy movie, which I actually really liked.
Well, like I said, it was fun to watch,
Yeah,
even
so
though it's
fun.
like some jokes just fall flat. It's like there's a spirit to it that's like Yeah, I like when it's going for a big, like a high concept comedy moment.
Yeah.
And it just like when they're stripping themselves in the closet because there's a spider in there. And you can totally see where the gag is going, but they kind of draw it out. I don't know. Stuff like that is very silly and very predictable, but I appreciate the kind of craft, the kind of clownish craft behind it.
The resolution for this movie was so dark. Like,
Yes.
I don't understand how
God.
this could be a comedy. Like, from everything from the blood bit becoming a bit for the dead body, like, you know, when he was checking the blood on the lady's leg, and then he checked the blood in his head from the headshot.
Yeah.
And that was a check to see if he was dead too. It was to taste the blood from his head.
I've never seen anything that's supposed to have like this like slapstick comedy get so serious, and they conspire to hide this body and to like steal it gets. How was this a comedy toward the end? It just was.
I think that's the key, though. I think that's probably why most people, maybe, I mean, I would say myself included, like that's the kind of what doesn't translate so well from if it's a spiritual sequel to Wanda, is that it's like a farcical comedy, but it doesn't, it's not as funny as Wanda, like, you know, anywhere near it. But like it's got those things, you know, certain characters even get enough, like, you know, like Kevin Kline gets a little more in this than say Jamie Lee or Michael Palin. But like I think that, you know, when you have scenes like the one you're describing, but the rest of the movie, it like that's more absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but the rest of the movie isn't as consistently funny. And like that core cast that you kind of expect it from to kind of have the ratio of laughs, you know, that they have in the prior film, even though it's not a sequel, you know, you different characters, whatever, but you kind of have a bit in your brain of your those expectations that they're going to kind of bring some similar goods, I guess. So it kind of clashes, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like the expectation of it and what you actually are watching, but then you see scenes like that one, and you're like, this is more absurd than just straight up funny. I mean, you're laughing, and we're laughing talking about it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really, that tone, that consistency is not there for the rest of the movie. Cause yeah, some of it's pretty bleak and not funny at all. But yeah,
another movie we might talk about hit me the same way, Steve, where it's like, I found it funnier to talk about than it was when I was watching it. Beetlejuice was like that for me. Like watching it, I chuckled at points, you know, and then later when I was like talking to someone about those points, I was like, oh, and then this happened. It's like I was more in, you know what? There's something about the. It's almost like you're tapping into something interesting there, where it's like the concept might be funnier than the execution. When you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, that was actually you can see the gag on paper and you can see what they were thinking, but something about the way it's shot and put together just doesn't always gel. I'm trying to think of another point that made me laugh. I think in general, I found even though they didn't have a lot of funny lines, I like how the animal keepers were these like dedicated lovers of their particular animals, and how every time you see them, they're being forced to wear some other ridiculous costume. They were wearing like brightly colored zookeeper uniforms, and then they have to dress up as animals. And it's just kind of a running joke. But I wondered, like particularly when it just cuts to a scene where Michael Palin and John Cleese are talking, and Michael Palin is like wearing like a brightly colored uniform and talking about how he can't wear it. It felt like there were a few scenes missing. Like this is a 90-minute comedy. It felt like there were a lot of. Do you know what I mean about a movie that feels like it was put together in the edit?
I definitely know what you're saying. Yeah,
like it felt like some things weren't as set up outside of a couple lines, and it was. There may have been a longer movie that they like almost out of insecurity were editing down. I think a lot of times with a comedy, if you're insecure about how it flows, you cut the shit out of it. And this feels almost like maybe even a studio edit or something where they took out some of the stuff that might have padded out some of these characters. I don't know that this movie ever could have hit us the way that A Fish Called Wanda does, because you're right, Steve, that's a more grounded film that has like, even the romance in it is a bit more credible. The romance in this felt like it was totally a comedy type of romance. You never really buy into the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis would be throwing herself at John Cleese. Whereas in A Fish Called Wanda, she's like turned on by how stuffy he is, and it's like a character point that she is like hot for guys for weird reasons.
Right.
And he's like a little bit younger, and he's like unhappy in his marriage, and he's like, I don't know, he sees something in her. It's a farce, but it has like a real romance in it. And this one felt like almost to the point where you would say man, that's some wish fulfillment for John Cleese that he's got her being the one who's turned on by him. I did think the sort of running gag of everybody thinking that he's having these threesomes and foursomes and stuff, that was pretty funny.
It was so funny.
That was good. That was good.
He called him a sick freak. He's like, Kevin Kline was really pulling off the like, I hate this guy because he's having so much sex. He called him ugly. I like when he called him ugly.
Yeah.
They were just arguing about something random. He's like, you're ugly and you need to. Like, wow.
Well, it's when he found out that she was into him that he was like, this guy? And then he started making fun of him and stuff.
But he said it in an argument. The first thing he said was that he was an ugly person. God, man, there were some funny parts to me. But yeah, it was a terrible movie. A terrible movie.
Oh my God, I love it when that's how it ends. The sentence has like, it was so great, but it was terrible.
Well, I mean, it is though. Like, there's almost like nothing more
Sure.
low rent than a misfiring comedy. But it's hard. But you can't really dislike a misfiring comedy.
Man.
They're trying. There's some very funny concepts in this. I think the concept that they rush into and rush past is the whole idea of the zookeepers trying to make their animals seem fierce. To keep the zoo open. I feel like that could have been almost the concept of the movie is reopening the zoo, and it's like a muskrat, and they're trying to make it seem like it's a killer muskrat. But they rushed through that joke. I mean, so that they could make more jokes. And I guess that's what I'm saying about a movie when it. And again, this is similar to the way I felt about Beetlejuice. But when a movie's trying to throw everything at the wall to see what sticks, a part of me is like, cool, do that. Like, I kind of admire the spirit of that. It's just you wish more stuck to the wall, when you're watching a movie.
Man, the part where they were talking, they don't even play it for laughs. They don't even no one reacts in the foreground to it. When that lady falls down the steps in the background.
Oh yeah.
No one pays attention in the foreground, and everybody's panicking in the background. It's not play for laughs the way that you would think it would be. It's a bunch of stuff like that tonally that just like don't understand that this might be the comedy. Like the fact that the lady fell was so fucking funny. But they didn't even play it like, oh my God, like no one on the staff did it. It was so weird. But I laughed so hard when that lady fell, man. Because it wasn't like a regular fall. She fell and then she slid down the steps. God, that was funny.
And you're right. And him poking the wound and like it's funny us knowing it's a real wound and he's like jabbing it with his finger. I mean, that again, that has a funny dark idea. And but a good example of where the kind of drop is that like in A Fish Called Wanda, Michael Palin's character Ken has a stutter, and even though that's played for the butt of many jokes, he also has heart, and there's an actual character there. He's like trying to get revenge. His dogs keep getting, he keeps accidentally killing an old lady's dogs. He's trying to kill an old lady, and he keeps accidentally killing her dogs, and he's an animal lover. And so it breaks his heart every time he accidentally kills one of her dogs. In this, he's a guy who can't shut up, and he has a spider that he likes. And it's like, neither one of those things is as funny as the dog thing or the stutter thing. You know what I mean? But you can see they're trying to do a similar thing of giving him kind of a Monty Python-esque character trait. But just him rattling off stuff, that was another thing that felt like it was edited down. I felt like they probably had a lot more of him rattling stuff off in that way that I know Dan Aykroyd loves to do, where it's just a lot of stuff. And Michael Palin is a really good actor and, a really likable comic presence. But, it's just not as funny of a joke to say, this guy can't shut up. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then I think with Jamie Lee Curtis, it really is like she's just not as sexy and not as cool and not as interesting as she is in A Fish Called Wanda. So she's kind of there to be like the babe, which is a little bit weird, even though the movie kind of centers her as this cool character. She just accepts being objectified as like a compliment throughout the movie. And I think that's a symptom of the times, I guess.
Yeah.
But you're right, Ronald, that it is part of that Jamie Lee Curtis era where like her showing up on screen meant, she's going to be sexy and cool and in on the joke and a little bit horny and a little bit, whatever. So, that is her thing. It's just this movie doesn't give her a lot to play outside of that. It's like they really thought you were going to fill in some blanks with the vibe of Wanda. And I haven't watched that movie in a while, but I remember the last time I watched it, I came away once again really enjoying it. And really the last time I saw it, I remember really thinking Kevin Kline as Otto is one of the best like comic idiot characters that's ever been done.
I think I really started to like pay attention to Jamie Foxx and her like I have menopause era, like where she was
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Jamie Lee Curtis. You remember that time?
You said Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx Curtis.
His Jamie Foxx in his menopause era. I'm really interested to know more about that.
Yeah. But when she was like essentially like in every interview talking about how her body was breaking down and her boobs are sagging now, and I was
Yeah.
like, cool. I mean, I've never disliked you, so
Yeah.
you don't have to tell me these things to make me like you.
Right.
I think it's really cool that you're aging gracefully. I thought that
Yeah.
she still is a gorgeous person. So it's like,
And she's still an awesome
sure.
presence in the right role in
she's
the
a
right movie
great,
too.
yeah. So like, I think, yeah. Unfortunately, I stumbled upon Jamie. Like, really started paying attention to Jamie Lee Curtis. I was gonna say Jamie Lee Fox, uh, but really paying attention.
Also a great name if anybody has
Yeah, yeah. If they
James
like,
Earl Curtis.
that.
Oh, by the way, I don't think we've recorded since James Earl Jones. Maybe we should talk about him in a minute. Just
Oh,
just
man.
a brief RIP for him.
don't
But,
get me to getting teary.
maybe we'll wait till the end. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think that Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome, and I do think it's fun to watch this movie before rolling into the new trilogy. But yeah, as recently as those movies, I mean, whatever you think about those movies, you can't say that any of the short points are like her not holding the
she
screen
was
or her
great
not
in
being
it,
able
man.
to command the thing.
Yeah.
And she's a cool, interesting person. And you know, I've always thought the whole married to Christopher Guest aspect is interesting too. Like, I can't imagine what that. Like, those are two very different cinematic energies that seem to work well together.
It's wild, man.
It's a pretty good flex for him, I would say.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yeah.
So there's no pick this week going forward because are we gonna pick it for the following, or we do that at the end of the
We do that at the end of the Watch 'Em All.
Right, okay, that's what I thought.
But I will say the
perfect.
Watch 'Em All will be a couple of extra things I want to say. I think we should rank the Halloween films, so we'll have our rankings ready for that episode. So just put them in order, and then maybe we can do an aggregate.
You're saying all of them?
Yeah,
or,
all of them.
So
Holy
all,
shit.
Do
all,
the whole,
all four episodes.
Yeah,
of
we'll just
Watch 'Em
rattle
All.
off our list, and maybe we'll do like an aggregate.
This is going to
of our
get
rankings.
crazy. Yeah.
And the other thing is, I will be doing a thing that this will be a first time, but I think for our Watch 'Em Alls, it might be a fun thing to do what I'm calling a survey schmervey. So I'll send you guys a little questionnaire to fill out, and then I will compile those answers to present some findings in time. But that'll be 2 weeks from now. So people have a long time to catch up if they haven't been listening. I know those Watch 'Em All episodes, when we were coming out weekly, those episodes are long, and people might feel like they need to watch the movies to enjoy them. You've got time. You've got a couple of weeks to get ready for the last installment of the Watch 'Em All. So
It's pretty incredible.
Very good.
So Ronald, weren't you gonna get
Let's get physical.
Yeah.
Let's get physical.
Okay, so
Put on your leg warmers.
Just got just got oh my goodness.
Just got something stuck in my throat.
Just got something. It's a I just got two movies that I wanted to talk about. One is a part of the Arrow Video sale that I've been talking about. It ends on the 29th. Man, that's kind of hard to see. This is Friday the 13th, the Arrow Video release of the 2009 remake.
Which you say you have not seen.
I've never seen it.
It's one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies.
Oh, cool.
And Derek Mears might be my favorite Jason. Like, I like the way he moves. I like his build. I think he's really cool as the killer.
Cool. So this just came out this past Tuesday. Man, I'm telling you, go to Barnes and Noble right now, the website and the physical stores, 50% off of Arrow videos. And for reference, they retail at about $40 or $50 for individual ones, and then box sets are between $80 and $90. So half off of that. So I'm probably going to get the Conan. I'm trying to slowly get the things that I've missed out on because I didn't want to spend $50 each time I bought a 4K. Next is Conan the Barbarian and the Destroyer. So I'm very excited. I'm probably going to buy those next before the 29th. So, and then the next pick is something I never thought I would ever come out on 4K, and that is, man, can this show?
Is it Richard Pryor?
Yeah, Richard Pryor live on the Sunset Strip. This is, look, I've never seen comedy in 4K this way. Like, I've seen Netflix specials, but I've never seen remasters of older movies. And Sony took this film. I mean, the last time that this was on physical media was DVD. So that cuts off the part of the picture anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So this in 4K is just a different sort of blocking. So you realize the original intention. Like there's shots where Richard Pryor's at the extreme right or extreme left
So you're
of the
saying
screen.
the DVD was not letterboxed or not?
Yeah, it was like
That's
it was like
interesting.
I remember it being like pan and scan almost. Like I
Oh,
remember it being like it kind of being like
I guess with comedy specials, they might have been unceremonious with how they dumped them on DVD.
yeah,
Something
yeah.
like I'm surprised though, because that seems like anything by Richard Pryor seems like it would have gotten the
Right, would have
golden,
gotten
the royal treatment. I mean, the golden treatment sounds different.
But yeah, this is just a fun thing to watch. Like just seeing Richard Pryor in the extreme right or extreme left of the screen, and then just audience and black background and this spotlight is just. I've never seen comedy like that. It just changed my whole perception of it. And it's a DTS 2.0, just stereo, and it is. I don't know how they. It's weird, man. Like I forget sometimes how much stereo can be effective. Good versions of it. I mean, there's awful versions of it, but good versions of stereo tracks could just be like, life altering, just really, really good layered sound. Like, how did they manage this with a stereo track? It just, yeah. But those two are just must purchase.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'll get physical. These are harder to get, but let's see if I can. I have here in
Speederman.
my hot little hands the 6-issue run of a story that ran in Web of Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man in 1987, written by J.M. DeMatteis and drawn by Mike Zeck, and it's called Kraven's Last Hunt. And it's one of the coolest Spider-Man stories. It's when they were doing cool comic, 4 and 5 and 6-issue runs. Daredevil had done it. Batman had had a few over at DC, and this was a rare case of a writer getting to make a story. Nowadays, this is not so uncommon, the kind of across a bunch of titles. But the fact that rather than space it out, like we're going to have one Spider-Man comic, have this as a 6-issue story over 6 months. The writer basically said, this story is going to affect the world of Spider-Man, and it kind of needs to be the whole thing. It'll be disorienting to a reader to then read another title that month that doesn't follow this story. And so they basically made it a 6-issue story that took place over 2 months over the 3 Spider-Man titles. So it was like,
Wow.
every week or so, it felt like, or every couple of weeks, you were getting one of these installments. And it's really some of the coolest art. I've read this story many times, and I just dug them out of the garage. I found that I still had them nicely together. And, just Kraven, I'm not really looking forward to the Kraven movie, but the fact that the Kraven movie's coming got me to thinking about the great Kraven story that is the reason why so many people want Kraven to be the villain in a Spider-Man movie. It's because of this story, Kraven's Last Hunt, from 1987. So I am in the process of adding that to my reading stack. So I recommend people find it. You probably can find it on wherever you get your online comics. I bet it's collected. Okay. There is definitely a book that collects it that has a lot of other Kraven and Spider-Man stories in it.
Okay.
I would think there's also probably somebody who's collected, or some book that's just collected the 6-issue series. But it's one of the big Spider-Man stories. So I would say
What's the name of a web of?
Well, it's called Kraven's Last Hunt. Is the story.
Okay.
But it ran through Web of Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, and Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man. So it was 3
cool.
Spider-Man titles that ran it. But I guess if you look at it, it was around the time that Spider-Man was wearing the Venom suit, but it wasn't like a big Venom story. He was just wearing the symbiote suit. So it was like that was Spider-Man's look at that time, was the black suit with the white spider. So it's graphically a really cool book, and it's it was allowed to be its own little chapter that's kind of self-contained. So
I gotta check that out. His storyline in Spider-Man 2, the video game, is like very cinematic. It's really cool, man.
Yeah, my son loves those games.
Yeah, so good. So good.
Very cool. So what have we seen? John, you mentioned Beetlejuice. I haven't seen it. I don't think Ronald, have you yet?
Yes.
Okay, what did you guys think of it? I haven't seen it, so tell us about it, though.
Well, I sort of tipped off some of my feelings. Ronald, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Beetlejuice?
Sure. I mean, Beetlejuice feels very different to me as an adult. The whole idea of it is very sad, very depressing stuff that I just didn't process as a kid. Watching it now, I enjoyed it just as much, but it weighed on me a little heavier watching the first Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
just because it was so sad. This second one, Michael Keaton has had like a 20-year Keaton science. I mean, like I know people like to play around with that term. Michael Keaton has been on a run, like everything from broad comedies to serious stuff. He's been nonstop. And then if you look at his career, I even watched the new RoboCop, the remake, and he was spectacular in that. Like it's like any little thing that he had an opportunity to be in, he's very special. So I was ready for it. I'm gonna say right up front, the first 15 minutes of this movie are a bust. It's like uneventful, not much is happening, and then it really picks up once the tension is established. But the first 10 or 15 minutes, nothing's really happening. I don't know, that there's like a lot of like, hey, remember these people? A lot of that, but like not much is happening story wise. I don't know how you felt about just how slow it felt at first, but John, what do you think? I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I know what you're saying. I agree. I don't think it's a particularly successful like stretch of the film, but I did like, for instance, I liked the scene in the art gallery with Catherine O'Hara's character where we're catching up with her and finding out what's happening. The way she reveals what's happened to Jeffrey Jones's character from the first one. Like all that stuff I thought was really funny, but I agree with you. I think it's the Winona Ryder plotline part of it that felt sort of like they were kind of doing something interesting and kind of not doing it. There's a whole thing early on about she's trying to take these drugs to avoid seeing ghosts, and her boyfriend wants her to see the ghosts because it's part of her fame. She has a show, like a ghost show. And it's like, that was actually kind of interesting, and I thought her little scenes with Justin Theroux at the beginning of the movie were kind of funny. And I think what they were trying to do was emulate the structure of the first Beetlejuice, where we withhold Beetlejuice for as long as we can,
Yeah.
I just think I kind of agree with you. That stretch of the movie wasn't working that well, but I did have a few chuckles. Like each of those scenes, I had a little laugh, I had a little laugh, I had a little laugh. I think for me, it's more as the movie went on and it got kind of messier. I feel like there's like 3 different potential sequels in this movie, and they did all of them.
They did,
and I don't think they did any
being
of them.
very generous, John.
I'm just saying I don't think they did
There's like
any of
4
them because they were doing all of them though. Like there's the whole mother-daughter thing where Jenna Ortega would be the new Winona Ryder. Where essentially she has and her character has a really strong reason why she would want to be the one to summon Beetlejuice. Like there's a real obvious reason why her character would be saying, "All right, well I'll just summon this guy and see what I can figure out." And then Winona Ryder coming to terms with her daughter. That's sort of in the movie, but not really. There's a whole idea of catching up with Beetlejuice and like seeing what he's been doing all this time. And then seeing some of his past. And that is interesting and funny enough that it's like, okay, I could actually take a little more Beetlejuice. I know they were proud of themselves for not putting too much Beetlejuice in the movie, but I could have taken a sequel that was more focused on Beetlejuice and the afterlife and all that stuff. And then you also have a thing that's sort of about Winona Ryder's character kind of coming to terms with this new situation that ends up repeating a lot of the beats of the first movie. Because apparently, again, in the first movie, it seemed like Beetlejuice wanted to marry Winona Ryder's character because it was a way he could get out of the afterlife. In this movie, it seems like Beetlejuice is just marriage-minded. Like, he's just obsessed with marriage.
He is.
And it's like, it's a little bit of the Member Berries thing of, like, we got to repeat the scene from the last movie, but it's different enough. But I thought that, like, the ex-girlfriend of his that's in the movie, I thought that was interesting and could have gone further and had more weight. And then you have Jenna Ortega's character, who has her own villain in the story that then is almost the worst villain in the story, but doesn't turn out to be in the movie as much. So I just feel like there's a lot of like
4 stories.
Right. Three at least, and then possibly 4, if you consider all these characters together in one thing, like its own thing. But I feel like that was to me a weakness of the movie, was that it didn't commit to any one of those potentially clear ideas. Where if you think about the first movie, the story is very linear. It goes from like one event to one event to one event, and it just makes sense. One thing happens, and then the next thing happens because of that. And it feels like something that's only happening one time. So I kind of feel like maybe they could have gotten further away from the first movie and done a little bit less of the Member Berries thing. But you know, within that, like you said, it's fun to see Michael Keaton doing this character. It's just like there's something. It brings a smile to your face to see him doing it, even when the joke. It's a little bit like I was saying about Fierce Creatures. Even when the jokes aren't landing, I was kind of enjoying these people back. And there are a few moments where Catherine Hara gets to like be really funny, where Michael Keaton gets to be really funny. And I think the movie is at its best when it's doing that thing you said, Ronald, of being like glib about death and like rubbing your nose. In fact, these characters are not even in the afterlife. There are characters being sucked into nothingness by a villain. So it's like there is something kind of dark and you know, there's a lot of death about this, you know, in this world. And I think that is maybe one of the strengths. I would have liked to have seen it just lean more into the crazy death obsessed part, and maybe not feel like it had to repeat so many like emotional beats with human characters that I really don't think the movie is that interested in. You know what I mean? I don't think by the time it gets to the end that they were really that interested in the mother-daughter stuff or the grandmother-granddaughter stuff. You know, it really was kind of perfunctory.
Yeah, I really did not like Justin Theroux in this movie. Like I did.
I thought he was funny, but I felt like he was increasingly one note kind of as it went along.
Yeah, I just didn't enjoy him. But yeah, I think it's enough stuff thrown at the wall, Steve, that it's going to be like not like the first Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters, the Freezy one, where it's still Ghostbusters and it's still hits on enough beats that you're like, this is still good. Like it's still Ghostbusters, the second one, and Beetlejuice are kind of in the same member-berry sort of category, and I think.
Right.
People are really going to enjoy this movie. I think it's...
Well, people are. It's a hit. It's a huge hit.
It's going to be...
Oh, yeah. Big
I'll
hit.
probably watch it a ton more times. Like, I can't wait till it comes out on digital. But yeah, it's 4 stories. Okay. 3 in a possible, like John said. 3 in a possible stories happening concurrently. But then there's subplots within that, believe it or not. So you have like a web of... multiverse of madness. The Beetlejuice of madness sort of deal where there's like so many stories going on at once that I don't know if you'll get attached to any single story enough, but Beetlejuice is so good in it.
Okay, so Ronald, I have to ask you about a joke, and this is one joke I'll spoil, Steve. This is not a huge thing, and you may have even seen it in a trailer or something. Okay. But Ronald, tell me how tired that Soul Train joke was.
What the fuck was that?
Okay, like for a guy who gets criticized for the whiteness of his movies,
Soul Train,
to be like, we're going to have a train that takes you to the afterlife and it's like a party train. That is not a bad idea. The idea that you'd be on the train with your spirit taking you to the afterlife and everybody's trying to make it seem like a party, that feels like you could do something really kind of fun and creepy with that idea. But the fact that it's full of black people and it's the only time you see black people and they're dressed like it's the 70s and there's a Don Cornelius style conductor who says Soul Train, you know, it's like and that they do it twice.
And and it's really long scenes, so it's like a block of time where they're just doing dance numbers. I don't know, man.
And it's like, okay, we don't, but I just feel like that is like the wrong kind of someone needs to take Tim Burton aside and say, this isn't what people meant when they said, why don't you put more black people in your films? They meant like, why don't you just cast more diversely? They didn't mean like, and I'm not taking away from the fact that Jenna Ortega, you know,
I was going to say Jenna counts.
A person of color, right?
But
still, it's not. It's like it was kind of a corny joke, and then they did it twice, and you're right, it goes on so long, and it's like then you look at the rest of the movie and you're like, oh man, there's really not any other times where it's a black person. So
we need more Monica Bellucci too, man.
Yeah. No, she I really felt like she was going to be more. Like she's got such a cool intro and every scene she's in, it was kind of repetitive when it cuts to her, but it was still kind of creepy and fun. And the one thing they didn't do that I really thought they were going to do was I thought the movie was going to start and we were going to find out that he's just had his number called. You know how he's sitting in the waiting room at the end of the first movie, he's got the long number. I know he swaps the number out, so technically he would be going sooner. But like I thought maybe they were going to play with that idea, and because even on the poster he's holding the ticket, you know. But no, I walked out of this movie and I would say I had fun watching it. It was fun to take, Nikki and Henry and I went to see it, and Henry thought it was kind of fun. You know, he wasn't like too cool for it, and I think he enjoyed it in the same way that you're talking about, Ronald. So it's like we all had fun. We all had nitpicks. I don't think we were complaining too much. My biggest complaint was that there were 2 seats down in an otherwise empty house was a guy with 2 kids whose kids talked loudly the whole movie. And he was like quoting the movie back to the movie after a line, and then got to where he
Oh.
was trying to say the line like with the movie, and a couple of times he did say the line that a character said when they said it, and he was like pleased with himself. You know, and I don't know if that means he saw it before or if he was just kind of guessing. But either way, it's that thing of like, these kids are talking and you're like, well, maybe dad's going to take care of it. And then you're like, oh, no. Dad is not taking care of it. Dad is just as bad, you know? And it was literally constant. So I have to say the movie may have been especially choppy for me because I kept having to filter out like, and the guy also burped loudly several times.
Yeah, come on now.
So
That's
like,
a nightmare.
and you know, you think you're setting an example by being really quiet that like they're going to notice, and you just, and yeah, you well timed, Steve. I did a couple times, you know, just
Try
to be
give
like,
him a hint. Yeah.
do you see how like suddenly you heard me, and then you notice that you haven't been hearing me at all the rest of the time, you know? But it's like, no, the guy didn't. Just didn't stop. Maybe that was Beetlejuice.
Could have been. Yeah, there you go.
No, I'm not sorry I saw it, and I'm not really sorry they made it. I guess I just kind of wish it had captured some of the simplicity of the first movie and stuck with the one story, and I also kind of wish it had been a little more different from the first movie. But I think maybe that's just the legacy sequel thing. We just, you know, that's just what it is now. You're going to sometimes think they could have made a true sequel, a truly different movie, rather than being almost, back to that word, insecure about like, oh, people have to like this, and they're only going to like it if we remind them, you know. But it still slaps is the music. That Beetlejuice music is incredible.
Yeah.
I read an article. I think it might have even been Drew McWeeny, like saying like a post he made was like the only like thing he was really bummed out about. It seemed like they reused a lot of the score. Like there wasn't a lot of new score for this movie.
Oh.
You feel that or
I'm not as enough of a scorehead to notice necessarily when it's a cue being reused. You know, I'll recognize melodies, but I don't always.
Right.
If I listen to the soundtrack, like I do sometimes listen to a soundtrack, I might notice that. But it was definitely like it opens with like the classic Beetlejuice theme. But I was even listening to it thinking, oh, this sounds kind of updated. But maybe I'm a rube.
Yeah, probably. That's probably what it is.
Right. Yeah.
What else?
Well, has anyone seen Rebel Ridge?
I did.
I did.
Okay. Well, I kind of fucking loved Rebel Ridge.
Rebel Ridge is the real deal, man. Like that's a movie that Erin actually wanted to watch with me after showing her the trailer, and we both were like blown away by it.
Let's talk about midsize sedan, aka
Dude,
Aaron Pierre.
what a find, man! Like
I mean,
the
this
whole
was gonna
John-
be John Boyega.
I can't even picture it honestly.
No.
After watching that
Hell
and
no.
knowing all that drama, like when that all happened, the fact that they like basically made this movie 3 times almost, or and because of COVID shutdowns, even beyond John leaving, but like, yeah, dude, like that. This is like a lean action thriller that just like really just fires on every cylinder. It's so entertaining. It's so propulsive. All the performances are really good, if not great.
I mean, Don Johnson is incredible. I don't know the actress that plays Summer, but she's fantastic.
Yeah,
and then the lead guy, like you're banking on a guy like to put a guy like that at the center of a movie like this. You're banking on so much charisma and like physicality and everything. And he was that character. Like I was watching that movie going.
Incredible.
And from a structural standpoint, Jeremy Saulnier, who directed it and wrote it, I believe. He's Blue Ruin and Green Room, and I mean the guy does gritty action, like a modern action with soul. We talk about movies having heart. His movies have soul, and like this movie's got the villains.
So good.
Watching the world, like watching what happens the first half hour is like. You want to punch the wall watching it. It's because you believe it, and yet it's heightened. You know what I mean? It's totally based on real shit that's happening, but it's also setting up a man on a mission kind of action. The story that again, it's Jeremy Saulnier's. It's his wheelhouse. It's like he knows how to do it. He knows how to give you a situation that feels like almost like a conspiracy thriller horror film at the same time as an action movie. And again, I stress this character is so compelling. I mean, maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, what were some of your favorite moments with this, like badass moments from this character?
It's a simple one that has nothing to do with combat. When he was fucking chasing that bus
Oh
He's
God,
like,
that was amazing.
oh my God, man! Like
Just to get him on the
you
window.
see that? Oh man, that like broke my heart.
But yeah,
Yeah,
and when he pulls up next to the driver too, and like makes
Yes,
sure that like, and he does it for like all the guys on the bus.
yes,
You know, it's
yeah,
like they're
yeah.
all going like, yeah, I don't know, that was incredible.
man.
That was
Yeah,
incredible.
that was definitely like an emotional one for sure. But that for me, it's got to be the scene when he's got Don Johnson outside of the police station.
The
He
acronym.
And
drags.
no, the acronyms when he's like, and then Johnson tries
Oh
to cut him off,
no!
and he's like, "Let me finish, or you're gonna let me finish," which
Yeah,
Johnson said earlier to him in the police station.
yeah.
But when he goes through that PACE acronym and you can see inside the police station, they're finding out who he is.
They're getting the
Yes.
Wi-Fi up. The
Like,
tension of the
That
Wi-Fi.
is incredible. The like the story, the pacing, like the editing around that was
Yes.
like
It's so
so
good.
incredible.
It's like, oh, it's martial arts. And then he
Yeah,
immediately just
the reason he wasn't deployed is because he stayed here and trained everybody that needed to go kick ass, basically.
so
Yeah.
good.
Like I was like, oh man, this shit's about to go down. Meanwhile,
Well,
Don Johnson's out there without a clue in the world.
Because he's used to intimidating guys like
Yeah,
this,
dude.
you know?
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
just
dude.
having the law behind him or something. And I loved later when he said, I'd never really had fought a guy outside the gym before I fought you. And Don Johnson was like, well, I fought a lot of guys. And then he said something like, yeah, I can see that, or I can see how that would happen, or something. So it's just like he had so many good comebacks. But man, you're right. The tension of that scene, Steve, of like,
Incredible.
you as a viewer know, what was it? MCMAP is they were looking up. McMap is what they were looking up. What does this mean? What does this mean? And it's going to be something badass. So when they keep cutting back and forth, you're like, man, Don Johnson doesn't know that he thinks this is like a desk jockey that he's about to go intimidate.
Yeah.
I will say this, since you mentioned what my pick would have been, Steve. I think my pick and this was just like, to me, a moment where I was like, this movie knows what it's doing. And I can't explain why this made me so happy. But when he's like running out of the basement and the flames shoot out and catch his shoes on fire, and he has to take his shoes off and keep going.
Yeah.
I loved that. That was so like, I feel like that reminded me of so many cool movies where the guy has to take his shoes off and now he's barefoot they didn't make a big deal out of it, but it was still this moment of like, fuck, now he's barefoot and he's had to leave these burning shoes behind. I just thought that was such a great, like, somehow that's just such good storytelling. And so like, I don't know, they know exactly what kind of movie this is supposed to be, but this is like, I mean, we talk about elevated horror sometimes with a grimace because it's a weird thing to say, but this felt like kind of elevated action or elevated.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. This is like, there was something so cinematic and pleasing, and I really think it's back to the Saulnier factor of just he knows how to do this stuff, and it's like it's not about fast chases or super elaborate battles. It's just really good tension that blows up in all the best ways.
Yeah. It had a lot of like he knows. I just thinking about Blue Ruin and Green Room, he knows about the intricacies of assholes. It's like this thing. It's not that they're an asshole right away. It's like conversationally with the way they talk to you. Like that guy could have handled that first interaction so much better. But no, that's not how people like him work.
Yeah.
They're going to test you immediately. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter how muscular you are.
Yep.
I have a gun and you don't have a gun. And
I have
I'm
the
the
law.
law. And, it's just like, I love that. He's incredible at that. Man, one of the things that really got to me was a dynamic between his character and Anna Sophia Robb. Like like it wasn't romantic, but there was some tension. They obviously thought they were both attractive people, but like it really just he cared about her. Like he was invested in her after a while, and
because she had so instinctively helped him too. That was what was cool about that. It's like he came to her rescue, but it was only after. It's like it wasn't the usual thing they do in a movie like this where it's like, okay, the most heroic thing a black man can do is help a white woman. It wasn't that. They were helping each other go. I don't know. I just thought that their partnership was an interesting, like, it was a cool team. It was a cool, like, buddy.
It
wasn't like a buddy comedy, but a buddy thriller. I don't know what you call it, but like, I liked that. I liked that a lot.
Oh man, another scene that I love is when he pulled Don Johnson into the, like, I guess the arm area, like where all the guns were, and he shoots him with. Guy, he shoots him.
And then he shoots him again. Like
bags.
Don Johnson gets up and says, like, stop him. And then he's like, shut the fuck up, and shoots him with that beanbag gun. Like, just knocks him down.
Knocks him down. Oh, and the sound of it, man, like just the thud, that bass. That movie was
I like that
incredible,
lady
man.
cop too, who was like sort of good and bad and good and bad, and
Oh,
in the
yeah.
end, kind of understood what she could do to help.
Yeah.
But in that moment, like where you think maybe she's the leak, and I don't know, I just thought there was some cool stuff going on there.
Okay, last thing, the gun in the car. Man,
Yeah.
that was fucking that's Blue Ruin. Like that's like grimy, shitty. Like I'm gonna throw a gun into your car, say you have a gun and shoot you 2 seconds after the gun lands into the car. Like, oh,
But yeah, give it. Yeah, he's really good in it too. Emery Cohen, he's really
so
good in it.
good. He just tosses it.
He's a
Boom.
piece of shit, man. Like
No, he is
he is,
definitely.
but he's great in it, man.
So
Like
good.
when he goes to get him at the end and he just gets the shit beaten out of him. Like I'm just like, damn, dude. And honestly, like, dude, I gotta be blunt. Like this is one of my favorite movies of the year.
No,
The
I,
It
more I
was so
the
good.
more I talk about it, and like the more I tell people to watch it, like I am like raving about this movie to people. I've rewatched it since I watch I've seen it twice. But like pound for pound, like I just feel like the way we're talking about this, like it's just there's really not much wrong. There's nothing that I can really say I didn't like about this movie.
the only
Honestly,
thing I would say is that it is, and I hate to, I mean, it's long, but it's paced well.
but it
Yeah.
goes so. But it, yeah,
And,
like
and
the
it's
pacing is great.
and each when it's getting to the end where you might be thinking, oh, this is going to keep going. Every scene is so interesting. Like that's right around the time, like right around the time where you might have thought this movie was ending is when we get into that James Cromwell stuff. That's such a good scene,
Oh,
and like
yeah.
that scene is so interesting. That's what the whole movie's full of. Like
Yes.
it's an interestingly staged scene.
Yeah.
It's a scene you've never seen before. A lady who wants to be a lawyer, and a guy who's trying to avenge his cousin who was killed in prison are sitting down with a judge,
Yeah.
who's trying to kill himself by taking his wife's old medication
Yeah.
while they grill him about this thing. And I love when he said, "What did he say? You're gonna have to break this down real quick or something." What does he say, Steve? You've seen it
Yeah,
twice.
yeah, definitely. It's like this. You're gonna have, yeah, because they know that he's called them already,
Yeah.
Right.
and yeah, he says something along what you just said, John. It's like
It's like, you're gonna have to
you're gonna have to let this out quick.
Right, like stop making this into a long story. Explain to us what we don't know. But I think that it felt like, I mean, again, I don't know how much research Jeremy Saulnier did or what he based this on, but it felt like the plot when we find out more. I mean, I know this is a crazy comparison, but it reminded me of a movie like Chinatown, where there's this like huge like storyline conspiracy plot that's about how society works, that's
It is,
behind
yeah.
this story, and it goes so high. It's like this, the conspiracy that he's up against goes so high. A movie could have left that stuff out. It would have been an awesome movie if it was just local cops who are, up against it. I like how even those shit cops have their own justification. Like, we're expected to make all this stuff better, but they're not giving us any money to do it. Like,
Yeah.
we're understaffed and we've got to raise the money somehow. So they're corrupt as fuck and they're terrible, but it's not like they're just like villains. They're actually trying to save face and keep their shit going and pay everybody off. I don't know. Everybody felt like a real character, even the kind of sleazy lawyer, not sleazy, but just the kind of, the lawyer that's like the boss of someone's
Yeah.
who they end up kind of, he kind of does the right thing in a very offhanded way, but I like how she says, "You're a tumor, Elliot." It was full of like political commentary and like societal commentary without being too much of a message movie. I don't know. I thought that was a neat trick that it pulled off.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved it.
I'm with you, Steve. I felt like I needed to say it out loud. Like,
Yes.
this is one of my favorite movies of the year. I had to say it too. And also, I know what you mean about like, just feeling high on this movie. Like like I said to Nikki and Henry, like, you guys might need to watch Rebel Ridge. Like,
Right.
I could see both of them loving it for different reasons.
Yeah. If you have not seen this man in anything else, can I suggest two things to see? Brother, I think is the name of it, is and then Genius, the third season or the fourth season. He played Malcolm X. He played fucking Malcolm X in a season of Genius. It
Oh
is
yeah, that's right.
what he's doing is on it. Like, if you think this is good, what he's doing on that shit is like, because you remember, he's like, people are trying to hurt him. People are trying to,
Yeah.
he's being worshipped. It's like this range that he's doing on the show that's just like second to none, man. So, um,
To his credit, yeah, like thinking about him in the movie, like I mean, he is the like standout of the movie. Like
yeah, for
he
sure.
he like this is a star making role. Like I
Yeah,
think
for
like this
sure.
is literally the takeaway from this is every single person's like, if you didn't know him, who is that?
Yeah.
And what else am I going to see him in? Like, how do you watch this and not think for a second that he could be James Bond?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like
I would
he's
love
young
to-
as shit. Like, you know, like he was incredible. But
Yeah.
the thing about the
I'd
performance,
watch a sequel to this too, frankly.
right? For sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, like the performance itself, the thing that kept getting me, and like Aaron and I, we were watching, like constantly back and forth to each other, like, oh, you know, there would be a moment when he was so deliberate about everything.
Yeah.
You mentioned stopping to take the shoes off, but
Yeah.
even the last scene of the movie where he parks that car, starts to run into the hospital, and then he remembers about the recording in the trunk,
Gets the recording.
and he goes back and fucking holds that recording in a chair and does not let anybody take it from him until he can turn it over. Like that is so deliberate and so intentional.
Yeah.
And that piece of that character is at the first scene you see him in the movie all the way to the last scene.
He's so
Everything
smart.
is so deliberate.
He's like looking around when he's in the police station, and he's looking around and he sees the screen and he takes in so much
Yeah.
information.
The
And then even
cameras.
later, that shit cop gives him credit when he says the thing about the lights. He's like, "Well, I
Yes.
noticed your lights must be broken because I know for you to pull me over, there you have to turn your lights on."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "That was pretty sharp, noticing about the lights." Like even that piece of shit had to say
Yeah.
something
Even
about
he
it.
had a compliment. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
So
like, no,
wow,
you're right,
man.
Steve. The intelligence of this character, it's like you don't see it from the first scene. When you don't know anything about him, you can tell that he's playing they've got him in the back of the car, and they're about to search his bag and find the money. You can see him going like, shit, these motherfuckers. Like he can
Yeah.
see how it's about to go wrong. And he says just the right thing to them to kind of let them know that he knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
But he doesn't push it because he also knows, well, this is when a motherfucker could end up dead.
Yeah.
If these cops. And the only thing I was trying to square is that I wondered if I watched it a second time, would I see traces of... There's a character reveal that I guess we've spoiled a lot about this movie, just in case someone's listening to this and they don't want to know everything. There's a character reveal we get later that I wonder if I were to watch the movie again, if I would notice things.
Yeah. You do. You definitely do.
Okay.
You
Because
definitely
I
do,
thought
like,
that
what-
actor was great. I thought that actor is always good, and he's kind of underappreciated, but
Yeah.
I thought he was really good in this.
Yeah, like when
Okay.
there's, especially when there's scenes with the cops and all those characters that we meet from the police station are together, especially on a rewatch, you can see a character of that group kind of floating out of the conversation, or like he's not always present, or he's the one kind of, you know, talking about the motivation for why they do some of this. Like you saying like what you're doing is like, in their mind, what they're doing is like the right thing. They're just going about it the wrong way. I mean, that character specifically definitely stands out more when you see those group shots and you see those set pieces with all of the police officers involved. Especially once you get past the opening sequence.
Okay.
That's the throw, is that opening sequence. So, but yeah,
I'll check that out, man.
If
That
you
sounds-
if you haven't watched Rebel Ridge, I mean, this is like a emphatic, like from all three of us. Definitely, it's one of the better Netflix originals. Maybe the best one. I don't know.
One of the
Like,
best. One of the. It's
I-
not.
I,
It's
I
so
would have
great.
loved to have seen this in a theater. I would have loved
Yeah,
to
for
have seen this in a
sure.
theater.
I mean,
Me
for
too.
sure. But like, I mean, good on them, man, for giving him this, like letting him and seeing it through, even through all the problems they had with making this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's wild that it ended up like there's a real shot that if this movie catches on still, it seems like it is, word of mouth wise, that it could definitely end up in the top 10 Netflix movies, like in terms of their viewing stuff, which is
Right.
great for all the reactions like we're talking about.
Yeah.
But it's also just good for Netflix to be like, this is the kind of movie, because it does sit in that thing like the action movies do really well. But this is
Mhm.
way more than just like an action movie. Like it's
Yeah.
a great thriller and a great character study. His performance is just wonderful.
And it's got, like I said, it's got something to say about real shit that's happening, like, you know,
Right.
commentary
Yeah.
on
Right.
the way man's inhumanity against man. And yeah, I mean, we kind of glossed over it just a little bit, but Don Johnson is fucking incredible in this. Like he
Great.
plays to the hilt, the sweaty kind of small town Southern. I mean, you know, he knows how to do that. He knows how to
He
be
does.
like the kind of like almost like 70s blaxploitation style villain. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like he represents like
Yeah.
sleazy whiteness in a way that is like really Like, I believed that
Totally.
character. There was humanity, even with all that. The guy felt like a real guy to me.
Between this Django and what else is he sleazy in? I just saw him in something
I
sleazy.
feel like he's been sleazy in 90% of things, but right. What things has he been like a kind of villainous character like this? You're right,
Django
there's
for
something
sure.
else.
Django
Yeah.
for
There
sure.
is
but
another one. You're right, Ronald.
There's another one. I just saw
Can't
him in
think
it.
of it.
Oh, Watchmen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He's fucking sleazy in Watchmen.
And doing a similar thing of like playing a kind of guy, even a better character in some way. I mean, a more like that character really disappoints you when you find out how bad he is.
Yes.
Because they spend the whole first episode basically building up like what a cool kind of leader he is and what a great boss he is, and then you find out,
You find out.
But I don't know. I always give actors credit when they know how to when they can play somebody truly awful and bring nuance to it and not hold back their acting. Some actors have this way of like when they're playing a shit character, letting you know they think this character's shitty and playing him so shitty that it's like it takes the pressure off of them. But Don Johnson does that thing that we've talked about on the show before that we like to see, where an actor weaponizes their charm and like makes it toxic. And, like, it's cool to see an actor who knows how to do that and doesn't seem like they're not holding back. That's all I've got. It's outside of just saying I've continued to keep up with. We're now fully caught up on Bad Monkey, and
cool.
Nikki and I really have. That's a really fun hangout show. Maybe we can all talk about that one when the season's over or something.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, anything else?
I think that's good.
I was gonna say last movie, A24 Strikes Again. Coleman Domingo stars in Sing Sing. See this movie. Make sure that you have tissues. I bawled.
I've heard amazing things. Yeah,
I bawled several times.
What's going on with your A24 peeps, Ronald? I feel like they've been botching a lot of their releases and marketing. Like, how does nobody know about Sing Sing?
I don't know,
especially knowing how much people love him.
Yeah.
Well, and the movie is like universally like beloved by audiences, and like I've heard nothing but incredible
good things.
Like it was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah,
and
it's
held
been the summer of neon. It's been the summer of neon.
Right? Yeah. I mean, everything, even A24, like what they've been releasing recently, has been like not doing well.
Yeah. Didn't they do that? Did they do the Ava DuVernay movie?
Origin last year. I don't know if that was them or not. I can't remember.
I think whoever did that, they botched that too. Like it was like she's like they didn't market it or anything. Or it's like Jesus, man.
But yeah, I was just like, I'm only asking in the context of this movie because this was the most recent one.
Yeah,
I saw some literally articles about this one specifically in terms of
Oscar contender.
Yes. Like how is this movie going to have a shot in the winter, Oscar season if
no one
knows about it. No one knows, or outside of like, people. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, they just released that they had Maxine, they had that Julia Louis-Dreyfus movie Tuesday. They had I Saw the TV Glow. Civil War was a big hit. Love Lies Bleeding was a moderate hit. But recently they looked at what was it called? Oh, The Front Room. The one with
Brandy.
That just came out with Brandy in it. That like was literally, I think I'm trying to find the article, but it was like one of the worst openings ever per theater or some crazy thing.
Really?
Like really, really bad numbers. Like, and that was the article that I was reading. It was about that movie, but then it was like, what's going on with A24, especially when they have a movie that could possibly win Coleman Domingo an Oscar, and no one knows about it. But I can't wait to watch this. Like I've heard nothing but incredible things, and you saying what you just said is like all I need, even beyond. But so what is it on digital now already, or what?
Yeah, I think it's on digital because I saw it on Vimeo, Vudu. I think I saw it on Vudu or something like that.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, nothing. I've heard nothing about this movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's on the list. Obviously, I can't wait to see it. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and again, it's our last episode or volume or chapter of the Watch 'Em All saga for the Halloween films.
Right as we sail into October, we're closing.
Like we said at the beginning of the summer, we pretty much timed this perfectly, guys. couldn't have been better. We at least gets us into the month of, you know,
yeah.
of October. So that'll be the next episode. But movieschmovie.com is the website. You can go there for all of our past episodes, and or to just link it to your podcast platform of choice if you want to subscribe. Also, youtube.com/movieschmovie podcast if you prefer to watch your podcasts. That option is there for you if you like. And there's also just a podcast feed there as well if you want the audio going. If you want to watch, you can watch. If you want to listen while you're browsing the internet at work, you can do that there on YouTube. Plenty of options is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's really no reason is what I'm getting at. And hopefully you can find us on one of those. If you're listening to us now, I'm assuming you already found us, but tell someone else what I really mean.
Yeah.
That's the real message here. Good seeing you both, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. As always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.